So last fall, I reviewed the Nissan Rogue Rock Creek Edition, which is kind of the off-roady version of the Rogue, and I walked away really impressed with it. I recommended it to a lot of people. There were just a few features that I felt were kind of missing. And that is where the vehicle behind me comes in. It's the Rogue in the Platinum top-of-the-line trim level, and it comes with pretty much every imaginable feature you can think of. Today's video will tell you all the ins and outs about this vehicle and why this is arguably one of the best new daily drivers you can buy. However, there is one caveat. Okay, so here we have the 2025 Nissan Rogue in the Platinum trim level. Now, if you guys saw my review of the Rock Creek from a few months back, you guys will know kind of the general specifics about this vehicle. It is the third generation of the Rogue, and it was facelifted back in 2024. The Rogue is the compact crossover within Nissan's lineup. The vehicle that sits below this is the Kicks, which was rated my best vehicle for 2024, and then the one that's above this is the Pathfinder. But this is one of, if not the best-selling vehicle in Nissan's lineup, and I can honestly see why. Now, let's talk about the exterior here because it is a little bit different than the Rock Creek that I reviewed that had some black plastic cladding because it was more off-roady. This one's definitely more premium, more luxurious. As you can see, you still have that V-motion front grille, but it's got some chrome with some black plastic, making it look a little bit more premium. You do get your LED running lamps up top, and your headlamps are located down here, down below. LEDs are standard on all trim levels, but as you can see, you do have body painted bumpers as well versus the black plastic that you found on the Rock Creek. You have your active shutters over here along with your front parking sensors. And in case you guys are wondering about this color, it is called Champagne Silver Metallic. And, you know, seeing this in person, it's got to be one of my most favorite colors on a new vehicle. It looks really nice, very premium. It just kind of speaks to the fact that this is the Platinum trim level. And I love it. I wish this color was offered on more vehicles. Now, coming across the side of the vehicle, talking about the wheels and tires here, these are the 19-inch wheels that come on the Platinum. They're 235, 55, and they look really good. They match the exterior. They got a little bit of chrome coloration to it along with some black, and then as we make our way across the side, you'll see there's some nice body lines on this vehicle. What I like about this Nissan's design is it's not too boxy like the Equinox, the Bronco Sport. You know, those are really good looking vehicles, but they're not for everybody. But at the same time, it's not super swoopy. It's kind of a nice blend of both. And then you do have your aluminum roof rails up at the top. Now, as we come across the rear end of the vehicle, you'll notice that you kind of have this bulging rear fender flare, and you do get LED tail lamps. Unfortunately, your turn signals are still incandescent, which I just don't get why Nissan does that. I think LEDs will look a lot better in the back, kind of finish off the exterior appearance. But from the back, it's a really good looking vehicle as well. You do have an integrated spoiler up at the top. Your windshield wiper is still on the windshield itself. It's not kind of tucked away, but you do have Rogue in the back along with your Platinum all-wheel drive badging, and then your exhaust port is located down here on the left-hand side. We'll talk powertrain later on in this video, but you can see there's also some chrome across the rear end, and you know, there's a little bit more chrome on this just because this is the Platinum trim level. It's meant to be a little bit more luxurious. You'll notice a little bit more on the side skirt. Now, talking about the proportions here, this vehicle is about 66.5 inches tall. It's 72.4 inches wide, and it is about 183 inches long. Your ground clearance is just around 8.2 inches, and so this isn't something you would take off-roading, but you do have that as actually a mode, as one of your drive modes inside of the vehicle. We'll talk more on that when we jump inside, but let me know your thoughts about the exterior. I think it's a handsome looking vehicle. You'll also notice that you have a blacked out A-pillar, kind of makes the windshield wrap around, and I think they have some nice touches here to make it look a little bit more premium. Jumping under the hood of the Rogue, it's the same powertrain on all trim levels, and I have a little bit of a gripe with it, but not for the reasons you might think. So you have a 1.5 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, similar to the one in the Equinox, but in the Equinox you get one extra cylinder at 4. So it's a little bit odd, but they are able to produce 201 horsepower, 225 pound-feet of torque. And I gotta say, driving this thing around in day-to-day traffic, honestly, you wouldn't be able to tell if this is a 3-cylinder or a 4-cylinder. It works perfectly fine. It's mated to an Xtronic CVT, which isn't ideal, and you can get this in either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. The one behind me is all-wheel drive. Rock Creek is standard in all-wheel drive. Fuel economy, it's in the high 20s, low 30s. This one combined is 31. If you get the front-wheel drive, you only get like one extra combined MPG. Towing capacity on this is 1,500 pounds, and the vehicle weighs just about 3,700 pounds. Now, my complaint with this powertrain isn't necessarily the size or the displacement or the power or anything like that. It's the fact that they don't have any other options for you. A lot of the competition offer a hybrid powertrain. Nissan still doesn't have that as of yet. I believe they're working on it, and the next Rogue or a facelift or whatever will have some sort of hybrid powertrain, but I think it's a little too late. Like, you have to do it now, and it has to be, you know, on the dealership lots, and they just don't have that available yet. I think that's one of the reasons why they might be missing out on some of the market share the Toyota and Honda are gaining in this space. Next up, let's jump inside the vehicle and show you all of the cool features. And I gotta say, the interior of this thing, I would say, punches above its weight. It's really nice and premium, but at the same time, you kind of expect that from the Platinum trim. First up, I do want to show you the Nissan key. It's the same one they've been using for years. You got your lock, unlock, you got your panic button, your automatic electronic release for your trunk, and you have your remote start. I do like that Nissan builds that into their keys. That way, it's never behind some sort of paywall. All right, let's jump inside and see all of the cool features, but I still can't get over this paint job. You really got to see it for yourself in person. Alrighty, so the interior of the Nissan Rogue. The Rock Creek impressed me with its materials, but this one's even better. So starting off with the door panel, this is all soft touch material up top. This is all kind of this faux leather wrap material. You've even got some stitching located over here, aluminum door handle. This one does come with the memory seats because, again, this is the Platinum trim level. You do kind of have this faux carbon fiber plastic or whatever, but you do have electronic, or automatic, I should say, window switches, door locks, mirror controls. This is all soft touch material. This is the only section that's hard touch, and of course down here you have more hard touch plastics just for durability's sake. You do have a little cup holder slot over there and a small storage compartment. Now, this one being the Platinum trim, you do get the upgraded 10-speaker Bose audio system, and I gotta say, it sounds pretty good. Bose in general isn't one of my favorite audio systems, but I feel like more speakers the better. So this one does have 10 as compared to the 8 that I reviewed in the other vehicles. Now, turning towards the seats, this is the semi-aniline leather seats, and this looks straight out of an Infiniti product. Really beautiful looking. You got some nice quilted stitching over here. These are heated. However, ventilated seats are not available on the Rogue, which is a little surprising, but I feel like they never really worked that well anyways. You do have 8-way power adjustable seats. Also, you've got 2-way lumbar support, and your passenger seat is also power operated, but really nice, comfortable seats. I gotta say, the Rock Creek may have been a little bit softer because it had a little bit of a different material makeup, but these are still very comfortable, very supportive. Now, jumping inside the vehicle, that's where I think, you know, you'll be surprised with how nice Nissan has improved its interiors over the last few years. This doesn't necessarily feel like the Rogue of the prior generations. I mean, this feels kind of a cut above. So starting off with the steering wheel, this is leather wrapped. It is faux leather though, but incredibly soft. Very nice to hold in your hands. It is flat bottom design. It's also heated, and that is standard on this particular trim as well. You do have your controls for your gauge cluster display, which we'll show off in just a second, along with your Seek track settings. On the right-hand side is how you're going to control your adaptive cruise control functionality. We'll show more of that off on the freeway because it's one of the best in the industry. This is kind of just a plastic covered little center cap, and then you do have the updated Nissan logo. To the left of the steering wheel, you're going to find some quick access buttons for like your steering assist, your adaptive cruise control functionality, your brightness indicator, your power lift gate, and then it is odd that there's a bunch of just faux buttons here. Now, this is a pretty well-equipped Platinum trim, so I'm not quite sure what these buttons are for. Just kind of empty space that I just don't understand it, why they even include these. You do have some nice kind of faux aluminum, and then you've got some faux wood. I don't believe this is real wood. I think it's plastic, but it looks really nice, and it's kind of outlined throughout the interior. You'll notice it over on the passenger side as well, with some more kind of faux aluminum over here, and it looks really nice. It's not open pore wood. It's not like what you find in some of the competition, but typically from kind of more well-equipped vehicles, but it is still really nice. Very nice interior. This is all leather wrapped. You've got some stitching that extends all the way on passenger to driver's side, and then this is all soft touch material up above you as well. So they really didn't cheapen out. This is really the only hard touch plastic all the way back there. Everything else is nice, soft touch, leather wrapped. You do have some piano black plastics, but it's not overdone, and just a really nice design to the interior. Next up, let's talk about what's going on in the gauge cluster display, because this is different than the Rock Creek that I reviewed back in the fall. This is a fully digital 12.3-inch instrument gauge cluster display, and this is pretty much straight out of an Infiniti product. I reviewed this in the QX60 just recently. Really nice system. It's cool that they've included this on the lower vehicles, like non-Infiniti products. For the most part, it's pretty much the same exact set of menus that you find on the smaller 7-inch gauge cluster. The fact is, though, this is all digital, and you can get a mini version of your Google Maps kind of located here in the middle. You can go through various settings, and it'll obviously load. It just takes a moment. moment. I do also want to point out that using the buttons over here on the steering wheel, you can change the meter view similar to other Infiniti products, and then you can get this kind of more modernized version where the center is a little bit larger and then your speedometer is kind of shrunken down on the right-hand side. But really colorful, nice screen. It's really nice to see this on regular day-to-day product like a Nissan. You also, this one has the premium package. You get this head-up display as part of that, and it's pretty nice. Also, I should say, when you use your wireless CarPlay or Android Auto, you'll see the directions located here. It won't necessarily show you the map, oddly enough, but it will tell you where to turn using the head-up display. So I'm glad they've integrated the two systems. Speaking of wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you've got it located over here in this new 12.3-inch all-digital infotainment screen. And finally, this is what I was looking for in the Rogue Rock Creek. I felt like that smaller 8-inch screen is fine on the base model, but anything above that really needs to be upgraded, and they finally did it. So this has the latest software that you can get even on Infiniti products. In fact, the new QX80 I reviewed just recently pretty much had the same software with just a little bit of a different background, but it is a fantastic software. This is awesome. I'm glad they're doing this. It's Google-based, so you can ask it questions like a smart home device. It's more colorful. It's more reactive than the old one. You've got your quick access buttons located over here on the left-hand side. Obviously, you can go through a variety of different settings here, different widgets. One of my favorite features here is this one having the Nissan ProPilot Assist 2.1. You've got the enhanced 3D camera. So not only do you have this bird's eye view, which the Rock Creek had too, but it didn't have as many angles. It just wasn't as nice as this one. What I like here is you also have this 3D view, which I think is kind of a silly feature. I don't think anybody who's parking their car is actually using this. I feel like the bird's eye view is better, but it is a cool gimmick to show off to your friends that your car has this fancy software. So I like when I see this in vehicles, not necessarily very useful or productive. Other than that, a very simple screen to use, very easy to understand. You kind of have this widget menu, and then you have your home menu with kind of your quick access buttons. As we move down from that, you do have some quick access buttons for your volume, your seek and track, your camera button. I love that they have a physical camera button. You don't have to hunt around for it on the screen. You could obviously turn the day and night mode. Down below that is the same climate control stack that you found in the other Nissan products I reviewed. It's all gloss black plastic, piano black plastic, but it's nice. The switches feel pretty good. In fact, the Infiniti QX80 from a couple years ago had this exact same switch gear. And then this one having the premium package, you also have the third row climate control. So this is 3-zone, which is surprising to see in a 2-row vehicle. So you can control that there. You can turn on your heated seats, your heated steering wheel, and obviously regulate your dual zone climate control. Down below that, you do have 2 USB ports, your engine start stop button, along with a cigarette style power outlet. A wireless charging pad is standard on this trim level, and then behind that is the same material you found on the door panel. It's kind of like this plastic, faux aluminum, carbon fiber trim. Nice leather wrapped gear selector. It's actually better than the one I had in the Range Rover Velar just recently. It feels more premium than that. You do have 2 cup holders. These are your different drive modes, and you can cycle through them on the gauge cluster. So there's eco, there's auto, snow, off-road, and then there is a sport mode at the very last one. You also have your electronic parking brake, your auto hold feature, a little compartment over here. Then this is all same, that leather wrap material. Feels really nice. Again, I believe this is faux leather, but it still feels more premium than just cheap plastic. You also have the secret button in here, which is for your interior cabin lighting. If the camera can focus, you can kind of see what it looks like. So you can turn it on and off. It's obviously not going to be very visible because it's in the midday right now. And then you can change different colors, and that's going to adjust the lighting around your cup holders and primarily in your footwell. So you can cycle through a bunch of different, probably 10 different colors. And it's nice that you can, play around with the interior. It makes it more customizable. Usually those features are reserved for the infotainment screen, but I think because this feature is probably only offered on a select few trim levels, they kind of put a physical button located in here. So it's a little bit odd, but I'm glad that they have that feature. And then you do have a little bit of ambient lighting located right above the door handle, just on the doors. It's not anything over here in the center aside from this lighting around the wireless charging pad, but it adds a nice kind of more premium touch. That color is not customizable, so it's odd that it won't match the footwell color. That would be kind of cool, but it is a nice kind of white light that shines below the door, and it just makes it feel a little bit more premium. And then over on the passenger side, you do have a pretty decently sized glove compartment. Up above you, surprisingly, no digital rear view camera mirror, but it is auto dimming. And then up above that is your typical Nissan switchgear. So you've got your sunglass holder over here, your buttons to turn on your cabin lighting. And then this one does come standard with a panoramic moonroof. So that is part of the Platinum trim package, and it is pretty nice and large. The opening is kind of small, like this is pretty much right above the passenger headrest, but other than that, that leaves a pretty open area for the second row. It's quite warm today, so we're just going to cover up this sunshade, and it does block out pretty much all of the sun. So that finishes off the first row. Let's jump in the second row, show off all of the cool features there. All right, jumping into the second row of the Rogue, it's not quite as nice as the first row. I mean, this is all hard touch plastic up here, but given this has the premium package, you do have second row sunshades, manual operated of course, but a very welcome feature, especially if you're a parent with a newborn. Down here, this is all soft touch, also where you're resting your elbow, nice aluminum door handle, little compartment over here, quite small, but it does fit a drink, and then an extension of your 10-speaker Bose audio system. Now, talking about these seats, these are just as nice as the first row. Take a look at that quilting, straight from Infiniti. You have your latch anchors, really easy to access over there, and then nice, soft headrest. So very comfortable seats to sit in, just as nice as the first row. Jumping inside of the vehicle, one of my biggest compliments to the Rogue is just how much space is in the second row. I mean, this is a compact crossover. There's got gobs of legroom, 38.5 inches of space behind the first row. You do get rear air vents on pretty much every trim level. Down below that, since this one has that premium package, you do get second row heated seats and your own set of climate controls in the back. Also, you get 2 USB ports, a small center hump, but there's so much space back here that you could easily fit a third occupant back here, and they could just kind of share some of that leg room in the second row. But plenty of space. You also have your map pockets located behind the leather seats. Up above me, even though the panoramic moonroof kind of eats a little bit of the headroom, there's still plenty of space because kind of a boxy exterior. So I'm 5'9". Plenty of space here in the second row. It's a very comfortable cabin for a daily driver. All right, now jumping into the trunk area of the vehicle, a power liftgate is standard on all but the base trim, but the hands-free that I just did, that's on the premium package of the various trim levels. Now jumping back here, not too much to report, but you do have some little storage compartments over here, and then you kind of have what Nissan calls this two-tier type of floor, and honestly it's a little confusing to figure out. It doesn't really add that much more space underneath the cargo hold, but you do have underneath here a compact spare tire, but I just don't really understand this whole system. I mean, if you're an owner of this vehicle, you'll probably get it, but I feel like they should have just done regular floor and then a little bit of space underneath rather than having this two-tier system, but whatever, that's just my opinion. You do have these little handles over here where you can lower the second row manually, which is nice, so you can, put some long items back there, and then there is a little fuse box section over here on the left-hand side. No household power outlets back here, which is unfortunate, but kind of par for the course for the compact crossover space. Now, with that third row up, you get about 36.5 cubic feet of space behind the second row. If you fold down that second row, you get upwards of nearly 73 cubic feet of space behind the first row. In terms of warranty, it's standard for the industry: 3-year 36,000 mile bumper to bumper, 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain, and then Nissan does include 2 years or 24,000 miles of complimentary maintenance with every new purchase. Next, let's address pricing, which happens to do with that caveat I was talking about earlier. So the entry-level S trim level of the Rogue starts just under $30,000. That's for the front-wheel drive trim level. That's before destination, which is $1,400. All-wheel drive is also $1,400. Now, if you step all the way up to the Platinum trim level in the front-wheel drive, you're just under $40,000. This one standing behind me with the all-wheel drive option, with that Platinum premium package, with the Nissan ProPilot Assist 2.1, this one tops out around $48,300. And to be completely honest, I think that's asking a little much for a couple reasons. First off, in the high $40,000 range, you can find yourself a 3-row crossover that's pretty well equipped with similar features. I'm thinking the Kia Telluride, the Hyundai Palisade. I actually reviewed a Telluride a couple years ago, and granted, prices were a little bit lower, but that one was a fully equipped one for $48,000, and it had the same nice features that this vehicle comes with. The second reason I think 48 is a little steep is because, well, at the end of the day, this is a Nissan. It's not a Toyota or a Honda. No matter what, it doesn't hold the same brand presence, and there is Toyota Rav4 Hybrid Limited, which is essentially pound for pound a very similar vehicle to this, and that one maxes out somewhere near $45,000, $46,000. In my opinion, I think Nissan needs to go for the budget-conscious buyers and price this thing a little bit less than the competition. I'm thinking maybe $40,000. Now, that being said, I don't think anybody's really paying $48,000 for this particular vehicle. I did a quick search for my local classifieds, and a lot of Rogues in the Platinum trim level that are MSRP somewhere around $46,000, $47,000, $48,000 are being priced at around $42,000 to $43,000 on the lots before any type of negotiation. So I think realistically, you could probably get this for $40,000, but honestly, I think Nissan should be pricing it at $40,000 from the beginning to get people into the lots to be able to check out this vehicle, because it is impressive, but $48,000 is asking a lot. Okay, next up, jumping behind the wheel, let's talk about how the Nissan Rogue drives. So not surprisingly, this drives very similar to the Rock Creek trim level I drove a few months back. That one obviously had kind of more all-terrain tires, so it, drove a little bit different, but you're kind of splitting hairs. To give you my general impressions before we talk about what I really want to discuss, which is the self-driving, this is a really great vehicle as a daily driver. It's very comfortable. Is it the most comfortable vehicle I've driven? Obviously not, but for a daily driver, it's smooth, it's quiet. I don't really have lots of cabin noise coming in, even at highway speeds, which we'll get on the highway and I'll show you what that feels like. But it's very refined. It really does surprise me how good this vehicle is. And after I reviewed the last one, I made the statement of, I understand why Nissan sells this vehicle in the tens of thousands. I mean, it's a really good car. Unless you've driven one, I don't think you should judge this vehicle, because the easy choices always go for the Rav4, go for the Honda CR-V, but I think if you don't test drive the Rogue, you really should, because it is a great daily driver. There's nothing really exciting about it, but none of the vehicles in this space are very exciting. The one thing I think is missing is just that hybrid powertrain, something to differentiate itself or give itself a competitive advantage. Now, of course, my camera mount will not stick to the windshield for some reason, so we're gonna switch camera angles here, but we're about to drive over some train tracks and I can show you what it feels like in this particular vehicle in terms of ride quality and just general sound insulation. It sounded a little bit louder, but in terms of ride quality, I've got no complaints. It works just great. And then just, in general, the interior, the acoustic glass here, it feels pretty well, sound insulated. It's not a luxury car by any means, but it's not any worse than competition. And it's a little bit more sound insulated than the Nissan Kicks I reviewed, which makes sense because that one is a kind of more affordable or cheaper product. So it's not going to be as well insulated as this particular vehicle. All right, so we're about to enter the freeway. I've put this thing into sport mode. Let's see how this thing accelerates. So here is 25. We're going to gun it. And we're at 70. It was okay. I mean, it's kind of what you expect. The problem with the CVT is you're not ever in that right torque band to be able to feel the power and accelerate. One thing I will say is it does seem like this CVT is a little bit less droney than the Altima I reviewed. And just in general, amongst CVTs, they're all droney. There's not really any exception to it. This one doesn't seem as bad, but the other downside of CVTs is just it kind of has this, slower acceleration, and this one has the same feeling. I just, it's not meant for 0 to 60s. Granted, that was uphill, and this, tiny 3-cylinder. In terms of passing power, it's perfectly fine though. Like here I am at, 65. I gun it. It gets up to 70 pretty quick. So I have no issues with passing power. It's just general kind of 0 to 60 where it suffers. Now, what I really was excited to show you about was Nissan ProPilot Assist 2.1, which if I push this blue button on the steering wheel, and obviously I set the speed, once my gauge cluster turns blue, which it is right now, you might be able to see on the screen right there, it is blue, then that means I'm in the hands-free mode. And so right now, as long as I'm paying attention to the road, and it uses sensors behind the steering wheel to make sure I am, I can take my hands off the steering wheel and this thing will steer itself. And I've experienced this in prior Nissan products, specifically the Aria. And when I had that vehicle about a year ago, the road I'm driving on right now was always under maintenance. And so I really only had Nissan ProPilot Assist 2.1 on for probably like 30 seconds of a 30-minute commute. I'm not sure if they have improved, or if it's just because I'm in the Rogue versus the Aria. This thing remains on for a good amount of time. Not quite GM Super Cruise levels, because I just came from driving the GMC Acadia, which had Super Cruise, but damn near close. I mean, it was probably a good 10 minutes of this thing being on. I had to touch the steering wheel, and then it deactivated for a second, then activated again. So it remains on for a good amount of time, enough that if you're doing a road trip, you know, for the most part, you can keep your hands off the steering wheel if you're on a major highway. Now, there is a button here to be able to change lanes. So by pushing that button, I guess I can. I don't know. It's a very confusing on how you change lanes. I think you have to tap the blinker and then you have to hold the steering wheel, versus in the GMC Super Cruise system, you simply just have to honestly let the car do itself, or you tap on the blinker and the vehicle will change lanes by itself. So it's a little bit more sophisticated there. Honestly, auto lane changing is hit or miss. In some cases, I feel like it does it preemptively and it's almost unnecessary, or it gets in the way of traffic. So I'm not a huge fan of auto lane changes, but there are times where it is beneficial because the car in front of you is slow. So to wrap things up, thoughts on the Rogue. I think you've gathered my feelings on it. I think it's a fantastic daily driver. I think ProPilot Assist 2.1 is something that really none of the other competition, aside from GMC and Ford, have. In fact, a lot of luxury cars don't even have this level of autonomous driving. So I'm shocked that Nissan is one of the first to the market with this type of hands-free driving. So kudos to Nissan. It really is one of the best. In terms of just ride quality and feeling, oh, look, it shut off. So now it's back into the green mode, which just means regular adaptive cruise control with lane centering, as long as I keep my hands on the steering wheel. So still not bad. And now it's back onto blue. So you see it like switches on and off. In terms of daily drivability, this thing's fantastic, has the latest and greatest tech. I love the Google operating system. That software is fantastic. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, heated seats, semi-aniline leather, beautiful interior, really, really nice. The only thing, two things that I think could be better. One, let's give us a hybrid powertrain. That's what all the competition is, or at least the leaders in the competition are offering. And you know, you're missing out if you're not. The second, and I think the bigger thing, is pricing. $48,000 to me is just crazy. Now, I realize prices for cars have gone up, right? You can no longer get a compact crossover for 23 grand or so, right? You have to go to the subcompact space. But 48 grand to me is still a little bit too steep of a price to pay. I mean, 48,000 about, I don't know, half a decade ago, maybe a decade ago, was luxury car pricing. And to pay 48 grand for a non-luxury car, even though amenities itself are pretty much luxury level, I still feel like it's too much to ask for. And so if you can get this for 40 grand, fantastic price. I think it's a great vehicle. I would highly recommend it. Anything above 40, 43 grand, maybe he's pushing it. Anything above that, I just think this vehicle is too expensive, especially when you start looking at the competition. But good job, Nissan. I mean, if you continue producing cars like this, I think you will survive. I think get rid of some of the entry-level vehicles, upgrade or update your vehicles like you are with this Rogue, and I think the company can do well. The problem is they've just gone too long without updating any of their vehicles, and it's starting to roll out, but I think it's taking a little bit too long. But the Rogue's a fantastic vehicle. I really can't recommend it enough. But what are your thoughts on the Nissan Rogue? Would you take this over the competition? There's some compelling reasons to do so, especially with the Nissan ProPilot Assist 2.1. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, if you guys want to check out all of the videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date, and find me in all of my short form content on my various social media, same as the YouTube channel name. But so next time, everybody, I hope you all stay schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.